The boarding door clicked shut, and first-class passengers settled into their polished leather seats, clinking glasses of champagne before takeoff. The air smelled of money and quiet arrogance. Then she walked in. A black woman, hood pulled low, worn sneakers squeaking softly against the carpet, and a faded blue hoodie that looked out of place among silk scarves and Rolex wrists. She clutched her boarding pass, silent, eyes calm, almost unreadable. The flight attendant's face tightened instantly. Her practiced smile soured as she stepped into the woman's path. "Excuse, miss," she said loudly enough for the cabin to hear. "I think you're in the wrong section. First class isn't for everyone." Heads turned. A businessman in the aisle seat raised an eyebrow, smirking. A young couple whispered and stifled laughs. A teenager in the back quietly raised his phone, already recording. The woman didn't flinch. She simply held out her ticket. The attendant scanned it, scoffed, and shook her head dramatically. "Well, looks like it's real. But let me be honest, sweetheart, you don't belong here. This isn't the back of the bus. These seats aren't for hoodies and sneakers." A ripple of laughter spread through the cabin. One man muttered, "Probably used all her savings just for the Instagram photo." Another chimed in, "Hope she knows champagne isn't free refills." Still, she said nothing. No defense, no outrage. Just slid quietly into her seat, her calm stare fixed on the clouds beyond the window. That silence unsettled the cabin more than if she'd shouted. Because hidden beneath that hoodie was someone far greater than they could possibly imagine. And soon, every mocking whisper in that aisle would choke in regret. The seatbelt sign hadn't even blinked on before the flight attendant returned, her heels clicking sharply against the aisle. She stopped by the woman's seat, hands clasped behind her back, fake smile stretched thin. "Ma'am," she said sweetly, but her tone dripped with venom, "I'll say this plainly. You don't look like you belong here. People pay thousands for these seats. Thousands." She glanced around the cabin for approval. She got it. A businessman across the aisle chuckled, swirling his champagne. Maybe she thought economy plus was the same as first class. Laughter erupted. A woman in pearls leaned over to her husband and whispered far too loudly, "These days they'll just let anyone in, won't they?" Phones angled in, recording, hungry for humiliation. A teenager muttered under his breath, "This is going viral." But the woman in the hoodie? Still silent. Still calm. She adjusted her seatbelt, pulled her hood slightly lower, and stared straight ahead as if the insults were just background noise. That silence, steady, unshaken, only enraged the attendant further. "You know what, sweetheart?" she snapped, bending closer. "Security must have slipped. No way someone dressed like that belongs up here. Sneakers and hoodies? This isn't a street corner. This is first class. You're embarrassing yourself." The businessman snorted. "Embarrassing all of us." The woman finally turned her head, slowly, deliberately. Her eyes locked on the attendant's with a calmness so sharp it cut through the laughter. Not anger, not fear, just authority. It was the kind of gaze that said she didn't need to shout, didn't need to fight, because soon the truth would do the talking for her, and when it did, the entire cabin would choke on its own laughter. The flight attendant, satisfied with her little performance, straightened her uniform and smirked. "See? No arguments. She knows she doesn't belong here." The cabin chuckled in agreement. Glasses clinked, smug grins spread. It was as though the insults had somehow restored their sense of superiority. But then she moved. The woman in the hoodie slid one hand into her front pocket, slowly, calmly. The teenager recording leaned in closer, whispering to his friend, "Oh, here we go. She's about to freak out." Except she didn't. Her hand emerged holding not a passport, not a boarding pass, but a sleek black phone. Its case shimmered under the cabin lights, embossed with a golden crest no one recognized, but somehow looked expensive, exclusive. She unlocked it with a fingerprint and tapped swiftly, her face unreadable. Within seconds, a soft vibration hummed from the phone, and she set it calmly on her lap. 2 minutes later, heads turned as hurried footsteps echoed down the aisle. It wasn't another attendant. It wasn't security. It was the captain himself. Passengers straightened, confused. Why would the captain leave the cockpit mid-flight? His eyes swept the cabin, then landed on the woman in the hoodie. His jaw tightened. He adjusted his cap, his posture stiff, and when he finally spoke, his words sliced through the laughter. "Is there a problem here?" His voice was sharp, controlled, but laced with tension. The flight attendant froze. "Captain, I was just handling." But the captain didn't look at her. Like his attention stayed fixed on the silent woman in the hoodie. And for the first time since boarding, it wasn't she who looked out of place. It was them. The cabin's smug energy evaporated in an instant. The captain's voice carried through the aisle, sharp and deliberate. "Miss Williams," he said, bowing his head slightly, "please accept my deepest apologies." The name landed like a thunderclap. A hush rippled across the rows. A businessman blinked, muttering, "Wait, did he just say Cole Williams?" A young passenger frantically typed on his phone, eyes widening as headlines filled the screen. Tech genius, global investor, billionaire philanthropist. The Cole Williams. The same woman they had mocked for her sneakers. The same woman they laughed at for her hoodie. Now revealed as one of the most powerful names in the world. The flight attendant's face went ghost pale. Her voice cracked. "Miss Williams, I didn't know." Cole's gaze cut through her like glass, calm yet merciless. "You didn't need to know. You judged by clothes, by skin, by what you thought you saw. But real power doesn't beg to be recognized. It doesn't wear labels. It simply exists." Passengers squirmed in shame, some lowering their phones, others too horrified to move. The captain nodded at security. They stepped forward, but not for Cole. The attendant's protest turned into pleas as she was escorted out, her humiliation recorded from every angle. Cole leaned back, slid her phone into her pocket, and pulled her hood low again. Unbothered, untouchable, exactly as she'd been from the start. And in that silence, every passenger realized they hadn't just disrespected a woman, they had humiliated themselves before a legend. Back to Golden Stories. If you felt that twist, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Don't miss the next story that'll leave you speechless.